Hey, now welcome. He's Bergie. I'm Booker. This is the Bergie and Booker show, and let's get after it. It's Monday. The Final Four is set. Bergie, I know that you had no time to watch. I'm kidding. I'm sure you probably watched some of it, but FAU plays San Diego State, and UConn plays Miami. So the takeaway for me out of that is either FAU or SDSU, one of them is going to the title game. Unforeseen.
SDSU
Your pause speaks volumes.
versus FAU. The U versus UConn, in my mind, just spells WTF. What has happened to college basketball?
Yeah.
The push-up challenge is over. We both lost. We got to do push-ups.
Yeah.
But the fact that, it's unbelievable. Little known fact, there's a famous baseball player from San Diego State.
Yes, I know this. Who
What
leads their basketball team in assists, and his name is Tony Gwynn.
I did not know that until today.
Multiple sports. Play multiple sports.
How has nobody mentioned that? So shout out, I know Tony Gwynn has passed away, but I think his kids is in the Phillies organization. But anyway, FAU is going to play San Diego State University, and the University of Miami is going to play UConn. And at this point, I guess I'm an idiot to think UConn's going to win it, right? Because they're the traditional basketball team.
I was just going to say, is it too early to congratulate UConn on their championship? Yes, it is, because this is the year of who knows.
What a dig Hurley had after the game, too, because he talked about how good they were until the Big East started. And then he just said how tough the Big East season is. It's the best conference in the country. And then as soon as we got out of the Big East conference and started playing regular teams, we were great again. I mean, it was a perfect backhanded dig. And question for you, TV guy, used to sell TV, been on TV. The ratings, good, bad, indifferent, historic. I think they're going to tank, right?
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, I'm looking forward to waking up and seeing who won those games, especially, the title game is going to be whoever it is. I'm not going to say it's going to be UConn, but no, the ratings for television are not going to be great.
I mean, they'll be smart enough to put the UConn Miami game at least on as the night game, I would assume, to hopefully get some Northeast viewers.
So let me ask you this question. And the highest seeded team remaining is UConn, correct?
Right.
So they should play first as a coach. And I've had this discussion.
With John Tillman, would you, about how often Maryland plays the late game on Final Four weekend? Got done at 9 o'clock this year on Saturday, played at noon on Monday.
From a competitive advantage, you have to play first. You have a start time. You don't have to wait around. Plus, you then, if you win, which you should because you're the higher seeded team, you then get to scout. So the fact that they sometimes put the number one seeded team in the second game, like they did to Maryland last year, doesn't make sense to me. But I know that's TV coming in and saying we want them to be the marquee game. So
Miami and UConn is the second game Saturday night.
Shouldn't be.
No, it shouldn't be, but they will be.
Wow.
So we could have FAU versus Miami in the national championship.
I'm sorry. It's just I'm sorry to laugh, but that would be hilarious. Florida.
I mean, is Boca going to become the basketball capital of the world Monday night?
The best is Charles Barkley just came out a week ago saying how the NIL is going to destroy all these FAUs and SDSUs because, and he's probably right, it's going to take 2 or 3 years. And let's not lose sight of the fact that this year was March Madness. It was not just the NCAA men's basketball tournament.
I would like to see a stat on how many of these teams left and how many in the Elite Eight, how many of their players have played together for multiple years.
Right.
how many of them are juniors, how many of them are seniors, how many are COVID transfers, because the NIL is going to affect a lot of things. But the NIL, one of the things it's going to affect, why we talk about so many coaches are getting out of multiple sports, basketball included, Jay Wright and all these guys. I think they don't want to deal with the NIL. They don't want to. The one and done was bad enough, and some guys matched with a couple of 3- and 4-year guys. But Villanova won 2 national championships with juniors and seniors, and I think we're going to see a lot of the guys in the Elite Eight were juniors and seniors and that type of thing. Yeah, I think NIL will probably eventually turn 64 teams into football, basketball conferences, and then the rest will be, considered the 1AA. But it's not going to happen before next weekend. I mean, somebody who no one expected is going to win the national championship.
So let me ask you this, as far as NIL goes and the one and dones, because ultimately I kind of like the idea of a Tyler Hansbrough who stays for 4 years, or, those old guys at Duke who stayed for 4 years, or everybody. I think Magic Johnson stayed until his junior year at Michigan State, and Larry Bird stayed.
You had to
NIL. If you
didn't have a choice then, but
right.
I think what you do with to what you're saying is NILs are going to have to structure it that they're paid over 3 and 4 years.
That's exactly that was my question was, will that solve that by saying, hey, we're going to give you $1 million a year, but you gotta stay for 3 years. Nobody's going to stay for 4, but
you're
not going to leave after 1.
I mean, do it like a baseball. Ken Griffey Jr. is still getting paid by the Cincinnati Reds. What's his name is still getting paid by the Mets. Maybe stagger. Maybe say your first year you get $1 million, your second year you get $1 million,
1.3
year you get this, and when you graduate, we're going to give you X. And then maybe guys aren't all worried about the pros right away for football and basketball and everything. But anyway, I
like it. I like it.
Absolutely nuts to see who's in the Final Four, and nobody has a perfect bracket. And anybody who said they called FAU or San Diego State is full of shit. I mean, maybe somebody said Miami because they were in the Elite Eight last year. Maybe somebody said UConn, and because they went to school there and they like Hurley, or they're a good team. At least, I mean, a 5 seed is decent, but no one picked FAU or San Diego State. The kids' parents didn't pick them to go this far. I guarantee it. Their brothers and sisters don't have them going this far.
I agree. Hey, let's jump to some quarterbacks.
Yes.
And one of the things that's sticking in my craw, I heard someone talking today on a sports show about Brock Purdy and Troy Vance, the San Francisco quarterback competition.
Right.
And this was a person who I guarantee you never played football, never served as a general manager, never was involved with NFL other than talking about it. And they're saying what John Lynch, who played at Stanford and was a stud, and I saw him knock Jerome Bettis on his shoulders. Then he was in the NFL for 10, 12, 15 years, and now he's built San Francisco 49ers into whatever they are, and they're pretty good. I wish I was a fan of them. That's how good they are.
They're well respected.
I don't want someone who's never, ever played the sport, served in that role, or this telling me what they think John Lynch should do and how he should handle it, because it just boggles my mind that they think their opinion is worth something.
Analytics guys are going to do analytics things and be stupid and come up with all sorts of things. Your boy Lamar now asked to be traded currently March 2nd, but he has an open contract to talk to anybody he wants. So
and no one's talked to him.
Yeah. So he's really just kind of putting it out there, stirring the pot when really anybody could be talking to him. He's not under contract right now with the Ravens. They have an offer to do that restricted free, tag him, but he could come in right now and offer him the world and he could go right with them. So,
but no one has.
No one has.
So basically when they put the unrestricted franchise tag on him, or non-exclusive franchise tag, they basically are saying, we'll trade you. Like, go ahead. Like, I don't understand his
losing record in the playoffs.
To trade on March 2nd.
First of all, I'm a fan, but he's got a losing record in the playoffs. He's been injured the last couple of years, had COVID 75 times. Okay. And he wants more money than anybody's willing to give. I've said it once, I've said it again. The Ravens are saying just because Cleveland is dumb as shit doesn't mean we have to be. Okay. They're a good organization with good GMs and a good coach. And it's going to lead me to my next question. Have you seen the draft rankings of the NFL quarterbacks to be? The guys that are currently in college and are draft eligible? Depending on who you talk.
You're going to have to clarify. Are you talking about Todd McShay's mock draft 1 or 2 or 3?
Mel Kiper,
or Mel Kiper Jr.?
Todd McShay, Mel Kiper. Okay.
Mock draft 1, mock draft 2, mock draft 3. I think he's coming out with mock draft 4.6 sometime soon. I've seen some of them, and Stroud, the kid from Ohio State, is the one I would go with. But I just think he's got the size. He's a NFL type quarterback, but I say that as an Eagles fan, and Jalen Hurts is not an NFL size and stature quarterback. So it's all about
name me the last Ohio State quarterback to do well in the NFL.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it does, because they've had this guy before.
Name a quarterback before Tom Brady from Michigan that was any good, other than Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, they've had quarterbacks before. I'm just saying, in the new era of Ohio State, every one of the guys has failed. Every one of the guys has failed.
Art Schlichter.
Yeah,
I'll bet you he was the best one.
He probably was. But my point is, they keep pumping these guys out, and they're not pro ready. It's a great scheme. They win in college football. I'm just saying, I'm not sold on him. I'm not sold on Bryce Young. Okay, because I think there's definitely some schemes, some schematic things that are not going to translate from college to pro that these guys are doing. I'm not sold on Richardson out of Florida. He's done nothing. I've watched him play. These guys,
Jamarcus Russell. Jamarcus Russell.
Yeah, well, no, and I hope not, because I'm saying all of these guys are like NBA guys. Are you drafting for the ceiling? Like where they can be in a couple of years, or drafting what you have? Even Hooker out of Tennessee. I mean, he had a great year and he was injured. So here's my question, because I have sort of a dark horse pick and what I would do if I
know who it is, by the way, but I'm not going to reveal it.
Well, if I was the Baltimore Ravens, you know where the Baltimore Ravens picked this year in the draft?
No.
They draft 21.
Ooh, I know who they want to take.
Well, they need wide receivers.
Yeah.
They need offensive guards, and they need some D-backs, according to all the experts. But that was prior to Lamar basically saying, "I'm out of here," or "I want to be out of here," which he said when he didn't go to the playoff game, didn't get on the plane with the team. But if I were them, I would at least float the idea of Stetson Bennett.
Yep.
Out of Georgia. And here's why I think he's a dark horse, because number one, who has played with and against the most pros in college in the last 2 years? You're telling
me?
Yeah.
Georgia, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson.
And that's who he's playing against, and that's who he's winning against. He's leading dudes, all right, in a real locker room. I will never compare college locker room to an NFL locker room, but he's playing week in and week out with NFL guys and against NFL guys. Come October 26th of this coming year, he will be 26 years old. Okay. He won the national championship at 25, had a COVID year, had a red shirt year, walked on at Georgia, then went to a junior college, walked back on, earned his scholarship. Okay, so he has been through the ringer.
Yeah.
But here is why I think he's a great pick. If you pick him in the first round, just like they did to Lamar Jackson, guess what you get to do? You get to get him for 5 years on a rookie contract. Yep. He'll be 30 years old. By 30 years old, you're going to know what you have.
Yeah.
All right.
100%.
And more importantly, the Ravens did pretty well without Lamar Jackson last year in the playoffs. They gave teams a lot of trouble. Okay. Who'd they win the Super Bowl with twice?
Well, the first one was Trent Dilfer.
Yeah. And who was the next one, hun?
Oh, Joe Flacco.
Joe
Definitely
Flacco,
Flacco.
hun.
Joe Flacco.
You're telling me
Yeah.
Stetson doesn't look a little bit like those two? And I'm not
Yeah.
just talking because he's a white guy, because he ran real well at the combine and he's real smart and he's led some guys.
Not the grit.
And he will be cheap for the next 4 to 5 years.
And he's not even showing up on people's like top 4 or 5 quarterbacks.
He's 9 on Mel Kiper, but I think he's slowly creeping up. I think that I think it's a perfect thing for the Ravens to leak out there that they're willing to take this guy and do a 4 or 5 year deal with him. And, Lamar and all his people will go nuts. I think he's a dark horse. I think that the other guy, Richardson, obviously has a high ceiling, but he wasn't very accurate this year. Florida, he played poorly in games that Florida lost. When is that important? Again,
it doesn't help you.
Just because he did great in the underwear Olympics and he's got what is his ceiling? I mean, until he's in a locker room and on a field with NFL players, how does anybody know what his ceiling really is?
I agree. I think Stetson Bennett could be the sleeper pick. Not a sleeper pick, but someone that I would not bet against. And some of those guys that you named, I don't know how well they are actually going to do in the actual NFL as opposed to the underwear Olympics that you alluded to.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of quarterbacks that have been very, very successful that are not drafted in the first round.
Russell Wilson.
Or from smaller schools that have had to work very hard or have had to work harder and didn't have great players around them all the time. I mean, it's a crapshoot. We, like you said, Jamarcus Russell, there's a lot of failures. But I do think I kind of think that kid is somebody who's worth taking a risk for. You get him in the second round, you get him for 4 years on a rookie contract. But if you take him in the first round, like they did with Jackson, you get the 5 years out of him. And then he's 30 years old and he's a pretty mature 26-year-old, 27-year-old, 28-year-old leading your team. And, I think that's a good situation.
That could be the right pick. Yeah.
Completely different subject. Notre Dame UVA lacrosse game this weekend. Did you happen to see it?
I did. I got a chance to see. I couldn't hear it from where I was. I was at Clancy's, by the way. Shout out Clancy's. And great atmosphere, although it was freezing. I kept joking with people because I'm in Florida and they're all bundled up, big time bundled up. And then you see out of nowhere, the football guys come rolling in wearing their, sleeveless tops or no top, bouncing. They were loving it.
So the lacrosse team is playing. The football team comes out. They're going nuts. It's bitter cold, which goes back to my Micah Shrewsbury. Why in the world, or does he think he can get people to Notre Dame for basketball? But they had the head coach of Notre Dame football on air. You couldn't hear it, but he talked about how many of his guys on his football team have played lacrosse. And how many guys, to your point, he talks about multi-sport, high school athletes, and lacrosse is a great sport. And a lot of his guys are playing lacrosse, and it translates over with toughness, with athletic ability, with field presence, and all of that stuff. And I just thought the guys were out there having it was a great environment. Notre Dame eventually fell, but it made me think of all the things you talk about with multi-sports athletes. And frankly, Notre Dame, Maryland, and UVA, 1A, 1B, 1C, however you want to do it. I think
throw Duke in there as 1D.
Yeah, I think it's a 4 or 5. I think it's a 4 or 5 team race right now. But that environment, and then last night I did catch Ohio State Rutgers at Ohio State. Ohio State needed the win. It was cold, and they got the win. Again, great environment. Place was packed. Sunday night at 7:00 in Columbus, Ohio. It was cold. And they were out there playing. And these football schools are starting to pour on some serious lacrosse. And yes, Notre Dame, Ohio State, they're football schools. I don't care how good their lacrosse teams get.
And Penn State.
Yeah. Hey, Penn State, Maryland was a game. I mean, it was a game. I don't think Maryland was ever concerned. I think they.
So is Maryland a football school or a lacrosse school?
Unfortunately, it's a lacrosse school. It used to be a basketball school that also played football and then, had lacrosse. But as lacrosse has grown, I mean, it's a lacrosse school, and we won 8, so we'll see. In the next couple of years, maybe it'll be a football and a lacrosse school. He's getting better every year, which is all we can really ask of him.
And that's what we're looking for: improvement.
Yeah,
overachieve.
Improvement every year at the University of Maryland. I will say it once, I'll say it 100 times. The University of Maryland should go 8 or 9 wins every year in football, and once or twice a decade catch lightning in a bottle and get to 10 or 11 wins, because they've got great athletes all around them. The whole DMV, there's within 3 to 5 hours, there's great athletes. Their issue is, and it always will be, they have to play Michigan, they have to play Ohio State, they have to play Penn State, and they have to play Michigan State. They're in their division, okay? And by the way, Rutgers is there too, and everything else. So if they can beat everybody outside of the conference and win most of the games in the conference and
steal one from Michigan State or Penn State or Ohio State, that's a tall order though. When you're Maryland, not slighting them. That's not their forte.
I could do hours upon hours upon hours of how stupid we have been with some of our decisions, including $150 million on a facility, and then NIL comes out, and we could have just paid guys $1 million and 3 or 4 guys $1 million. Like I said, you pay a guy $1 million to play college football, he'll go work out at Gold's Gym. You don't need the facility. He might even play
Anytime Fitness.
Yeah, he might practice in the cold. But
Bergie.
Yeah, there you go. All-American lacrosse. Look at those guys.
No, I mean the workout. Yeah, strong as a bull.
Strong as a bull. So, real quick before we head out of here, we're all doing push-ups. Who do you got Saturday? San Diego State versus FAU.
I'll take whoever wins. So I'll wait until the game's over, and then I'll pick the team that won. No, I'll take. Who do you pick? Who are you picking?
Well,
I'll take FAU.
I'm going to take FAU because San Diego State, Creighton got hosed with that call. That was a bad call late. Don't call it.
It was still a 1 possession game. So SDSU can't be that bad.
Let them go to overtime. I'm going to ride the FAU train and just say FAU. And it's been complete chaos. So let's go FAU versus Miami. And, whoever wins, if you live in Southeast Florida, don't go outside because I'm sure guns will be firing and all sorts of stupid stuff. My head says Dan Hurley should take UConn. My head said the Miami coach is an old dude. He's a good coach. But Hurley, my head says Hurley.
He's an old dude.
My head says Hurley. I like Hurley. I think he's been in his dad and brother's shadow for a long time, and I think he's a good basketball mind. And his brother Bobby, I think they're renewing him at Arizona State. So I'm gonna go. Maybe it'll be FAU Miami Monday night, but I think UConn should win it.
It's gonna be the least watched title game ever.
And by the way, Big Ten Bergie was right about all the Big Ten basketball teams being good. I just mentioned it was the girls' side with Iowa and Ohio State, Maryland. I picked the wrong gender on.
You did perfect on the women's side.
Yeah. So
women's college hoops. All right, folks. He's Bergie. I'm Booker. We do what we do. Do it pretty well. Cheers, brother.